Howdy, y'all. I'm Mr. Reardon here. I'd like to just walk you through a quick example of how to put together a bare bones essay plan, and that you should make sure you have before you actually start looking at the sources you'll be using in your essay, and before you actually start doing your research. So this is one of the example topics that was in your handout. Delaning or untracking English classes would help to address the racial achievement gaps that persist in Santa Barbara County's public schools in 2020. So if I'm running with that argument statement for my paper, which might change, I would need to put together a plan that would allow me to make that argument. And you can't just start making that argument immediately in a longer research paper, right? You have to set up for that argument. And so I need to put together a plan that will engage in that setup and then take me through the argument itself, and land somewhere, right? Land at some kind of, interesting conclusion or some kind of call to action, right? Or some findings like why does this paper matter? Something that answers the question, why care about this? So, by the way, I do not have a planned plan. I don't have a planned essay plan right now for this. I'm doing this completely off the cuff. So I might erase things. I might rewrite things. I might add things or type something and then go back and add something else before it, right? That is actually part of the process. So your process might look pretty similar to mine here, and that's fine. I believe that is actually the best way for you to learn how to do this. So let's see here. What's the first thing I want to do? I mean, obviously, I'm going to have an introduction, right, to the situation in general. I'm not really sure what I'll put in there yet, and honestly, it doesn't matter at this particular moment. Next thing I might want to talk about is I probably want to give some definitions, right? These terms, achievement gap, the tracking or laning, right? Laning is a word we use at Pali. It's essentially used nowhere else in the world. It was invented by somebody at Pali and caught on. Everywhere else in the world, the concept is known as tracking. So tracking, right? Tracking. What is it? What's tracking? Maybe I would actually want to put, since the achievement gap is a much bigger abstract concept, I might want to I'm going to put that first, right? I'm going to say achievement gap, like what's that? What is it, right? So I'm engaging in the rhetorical mode of definition here. And then again, we're engaging in the rhetorical mode of definition. So, okay, I've defined the two terms. Where do I want to go next? Well, maybe I want to explain why, maybe I want to talk about Santa Barbara County. And who knows, maybe I would end up building this in the paragraphs that I've already, written about the achievement gap for tracking. I could figure out a way to build it in county. But why? Why am I choosing Santa Barbara County in particular? Why not Santa Clara County? Why not, San Mateo County? Why would I choose that one in particular for this paper? Now, my answer to that question would be that I think the schools in Santa Barbara County, especially in the northern part of Santa Barbara County, so Lompoc, Santa Maria, San Ynez, the schools there are particularly tracked, and I think it results in the same kinds of achievement gaps and inequities that I would talk about up in this paragraph. All right, so I do this definition. Where might I want to go next? I might say, okay, right, one evidence-based way untracking can lead to higher performance. And then maybe another way. Or no, I'm not going to say higher performance. I'm actually going to change this. It can lead to a closing of the achievement gap. Some people say opportunity gap now instead of achievement gap, and that's fine. I'm going to add another piece here, though. And then This is VI space. Instead of, I'm going to change this here to say first evidence-based way on tracking. Second evidence-based way on tracking can lead to a closing of the achievement gap. Third, same thing, evidence-based way. All right, that would be 3 paragraphs. You know, now that I think about it, maybe I would actually stop. Since these might be general and these examples might be from different places, different schools, really different sources. They might include focus on low-income students. They might focus on a certain groups of students, you know, Latinx students, Black students, maybe special education students, right? Maybe I'll actually want to take this idea, Santa Barbara County, and move it later, right? So present the idea of, or like all the different ways that untracking in general has shown that it can decrease the achievement gap in these places, and then take it to Santa Barbara County and say, here's what the system looks like at Cabrillo Senior High School in Lompoc, California, and this is leading to these consequences, right? That would be maybe a 2 or 3 evidence unit paragraph. These are the long-term negative consequences of such a system for people in that town, right? And then okay, once I've done that, I can then say maybe doing some of these things, right? Maybe what would it look like to implement something similar to what happens in IB, VI above, and what would it look like? Oops, verb conjugation. Or right, I don't know. I would probably look at sources and figure out what data I have or what schools I have data for and make a decision. And then maybe I'll even have a paragraph like arguments against making such changes, and why those arguments aren't as strong, right? This would be a great example to have like 3 evidence units, you know, 3 evidence units, 1 evidence unit presenting why what the arguments are against it, another evidence unit presenting the why that argument it doesn't actually hold up, and then a 3rd evidence unit further supporting your own perspective given what happened in those first 2 evidence units. All right, and then what else here? Okay, arguments against making such changes, and then maybe this is the conclusion. Who knows? We could add more things later. It's an iterative process, people. Conclusion. Why? How could you implement this? How could you convince someone at your school to start the process of ending this discriminatory practice? I'm afraid my plan here may have ended up being more than 100 words just because I am so passionate about this topic. But I select this here, it says 118. Okay, it's a little over. I'm going to make this 150. Just to make sure I'm not engaging in word count hypocrisy problems. All right. That's a bare bones plan. Now I know when I go to do my research, right? When I go to complete this, complete the process where I'm actually looking for sources, I'm actually going to drag this over here right now. Here we go. I know that, okay, what do I need? I need a definition of the achievement gap. I need a definition of tracking. I need maybe one story about how unending tracking, engaging in the process of untracking in some schools somewhere actually helped to close an achievement gap. Maybe that's what I would do here, right? If you look here, I've done, right, I found 3 different sources that talked about the, the definition of the achievement gap, and like what it is, and maybe how it can look. It's 3 different perspectives that all sort of generally support the this idea, like this my purpose here, which is to define and clarify exactly what the achievement gap is. And I'm doing a similar thing down here with the concept of tracking, right? I clarify, I have a clear definition example from one source. There's another, indirect definition that I might use to support something in the essay. And then in this third place here, I have, an example, like this is actually how tracking can look, or this is how you know if your school is tracked, if you just go look at classrooms, right? Also, just a little note here about how to use this document. I created these links. If you're on a Windows, Mac, or I think Chromebook too, honestly, you should be able to um, select, like actually highlight the word link down here where they're blank, and you press Control K, right, or Command K on a Mac, and then you can just paste the link directly in there. This way, you have one document where all of your sources are linked, and you can open them and navigate to them very quickly. What I've done here is copied the quotes. I recommend making the fonts smaller and making them italic, so they take up as little space as possible and don't really mess with the integrity of the document. I better fix this one because, whoa, okay, it should be italic. Okay, right, and then I'm typing the medium here just so it makes your YTAG a little easier later on, and also it will show me when you turn this in this week that you're looking at a variety of sources. I don't want everything to be the same, just random websites ending in .com, right? I want you to have some journal articles and some government reports and some multimedia sources and some right, different kinds of things ultimately. And I tell you up here, ultimately I'm going to ask you to have 5 sources, at least one of which is an academic journal, and at least one of which is a non-print um, a non-print source. So what I mean by non-print source is like a video, film, recording, or podcast in your essay. And that's just because it's important that you know how to build something like that into a research paper. All right, I think that is everything you need in order to be successful on this week's research paper activities. So thank you. I'm an email away if you have any questions.